Good evening. I'm Harry Reasoner in Washington. Howard K. Smith is still home with a bad cold. These are tonight's headlines. A kidnapped Cincinnati girl is found alive. President Ford says the time has come to act against crime and the habitual criminal. A Senate committee votes unanimously against giving the White House tapes to former President Nixon. Vice President-designate Nelson Rockefeller says he feels Mr. Nixon's acceptance of a pardon is tantamount to admitting guilt. And tonight's comment on what the West is saying to the oil-producing countries. 4-year-old Allison Meacham, whose father is chairman of the board of the Taft Broadcasting Company, was kidnapped in Cincinnati yesterday while playing with a neighbor's son. Late today, the girl was found safe after a massive police search. We have details on the story from ABC's Greg Dobbs.
This is where Allison was kidnapped, from right in front of her home where she was playing with a 6-year-old neighbor. She was riding a tricycle when a young man with light-colored hair drove down the block and asked neighbors where the Meachams lived. When Allison was pointed out to him, he drove up to her, pulled her off her tricycle and into his car and sped off. This house painter from across the street gave chase, but he couldn't keep up, and a young neighbor was attracted to the kidnapper's speeding car.
I saw him, and it was a whitish-colored car with a red stripe in the back. And the little girl was leaning against the dashboard, and I couldn't tell whether she was crying or not.
Early in the evening, negotiations began. 2 phone calls, reportedly ransom calls, came into the Meacham home. Allison's father, accompanied by plainclothesmen, drove to this phone booth about a mile away and got another call. Meanwhile, in a parking lot just a few blocks from Allison's home, the kidnapped car was found, containing Allison's jacket and a ransom note. Reportedly, $2,000 was demanded, a figure so low that authorities were worried about the kidnapper's mental stability. This morning, as police and FBI agents came and went and neighbors brought food for the family and telegrams and flowers arrived, Allison's father met with newsmen.
As a family, we are heartbroken by the tragedy that has occurred to us. We have only one concern, and that is the safe return of Allison. Nothing else is important to us. If those responsible for this act read or hear this statement, please know that getting our child back is the only concern of all of us, and we will do anything within our power to accomplish this.
Late this afternoon, the Meachams got their child back. 4-year-old Allison was found alone in a suburban motel room, hungry, nervous, but unhurt. As she heads for home, police continue to search for the man or the group that kidnapped her. Greg Dobbs, ABC News, Cincinnati.
Mary? Homicide with Mary? Where's our Rolaids?
Acid indigestion.
No. Try these. They're good. Good, maybe, but they're not Rolaids.
In this medical report, Rolaids active ingredient was medically recognized safe and effective, taken as directed. Rolaids, with no extra ingredients not intended for your stomach, consumes 47 times its weight in excess stomach acid. Rolaids ingredient, medically recognized, safe and effective.
So remember, there's 2 TO, 2 TOO, 2 TWO.
Sir, what's the one word you choose to describe Listerine antiseptic?
2.
Ah, too strong.
Not too strong. Listerine's got to be strong to kill the germs that can cause bad breath. 2 times longer. You see, Listerine's clean breath lasts 2 times longer than the leading soda pop tasting mouthwash.
How many times longer?
2. TWO. 2.
For clean breath that lasts 2 times longer. Listerine.
A Senate committee today passed a bill to give the government control of former President Nixon's papers and tape recordings. At the same time, a House committee has begun looking into the pardon granted to Mr. Nixon. We have details, first from ABC's Bob Clark.
President Ford's agreement to return the celebrated White House tapes eventually to Richard Nixon and let him destroy them if he wanted had rankled many in Congress almost as much as the pardon of the former president. Today, a committee headed by Sam Ervin unanimously approved a bill that would nullify that agreement and keep Mr. Nixon from ever taking possession of the tapes or his other White House papers. Before the vote, there were strong comments from several senators.
It provides that these tapes, particularly the Watergate tapes, also covers other materials, but it has special provisions about the Watergate tapes and memorandum, and provides that they shall not be destroyed.
The necessity, above all of the others, is to preserve the tapes for the purpose of prosecuting the Watergate case.
We are not going to be blocked or stopped or delayed or jeopardized in any prosecution resulting from Watergate, the pardon itself was bad enough coming when it did. We'll have no more of it.
Then came the unanimous vote.
All in favor of the committee taking that action.
The ban on giving the tapes to Mr. Nixon is expected to be approved by Congress with little opposition. Then President Ford must decide whether to veto the bill or break his agreement with the former president. Bob Clark, ABC News, Capitol Hill.
This is Sam Donaldson. On the House side of the Capitol, a Judiciary Subcommittee has begun considering whether to recommend a formal congressional inquiry into the Nixon pardon. Informal written questions about the pardon sent to President Ford have gone unanswered. Mr. Ford simply sent up copies of previously issued statements and a letter which said, in effect, let's put the pardon issue behind us. A response that didn't sit well with some subcommittee members.
I, too, found his response not only cavalier, but very close to being very close to being disrespectful of the House of Representatives and this committee.
The subcommittee decided to send President Ford another letter asking for specific answers by Thursday. It also asked that the White House send up someone next week to testify about the pardon. The subcommittee heard demands that a formal investigation be launched.
There are suspicions that Richard Nixon may have made a deal on the pardon with Gerald Ford before nominating him to the vice presidency. If Richard Nixon made Ford's elevation to vice president conditional upon the promise of a pardon, or even if Mr. Nixon conditioned his own resignation on a promise of receiving a pardon, then conceivably Mr. Ford could be charged with accepting a bribe, which is an impeachable offense.
Special Prosecutor Jaworski, on Capitol Hill on some undisclosed mission, declined to talk about the demands for an investigation of the pardon. But he did discuss the status of an investigation into Richard Nixon's health.
Can you tell us whether a panel of medical experts is in fact going to examine the former president?
So far as I know, there's been no ruling made on that. It has been suggested, but as far as I know at the present time, it's still under consideration by Judge Sirica.
At the moment, then, the former president is subpoenaed by not only you, but the defense, and you would expect him to appear at the trial?
So far as I know, of course, he's been subpoenaed. And so far as I know, he will appear at the trial. I know nothing to the contrary.
Sam Donaldson, ABC News, Capitol Hill.
In Long Beach, California, Mr. Nixon was reported today to be responding well to treatment for his phlebitis. Dr. John Lundgren of the Long Beach Medical Center said he began treating Mr. Nixon with anticoagulant drugs shortly after he entered the hospital yesterday. Judge John Sirica today set next Monday for a hearing to determine if transcripts of White House tapes produced by the special prosecutor should be used in the Watergate cover-up trial. The hearing is to decide if the transcripts are accurate enough to be used as evidence. Defendants in the trial today filed lists of witnesses they want called. There are 80 names on John Ehrlichman's list alone. He also listed 230 questions that he wants used to screen out unsuitable jurors. The subject of Mr. Nixon's pardon also came up in the Senate Rules Committee today during confirmation hearings on Nelson Rockefeller's nomination as vice president. Bill Zimmerman has the details.
Rockefeller applauded the pardon as an act of conscience, compassion, and courage. And while President Ford had said acceptance of the pardon by Nixon could be construed as an admission of guilt, the vice president designate made it clear that he's one who construes it that way.
The president resigned. The president accepted a pardon, which, in my opinion, is tantamount to admitting guilt.
Committee Chairman Howard Cannon wanted to know whether Rockefeller believes in one standard of justice for a former president and another for an ordinary citizen.
Yes, sir.
Do you agree that in order for our system of justice to function, that the same standards alike must be exercised as to all persons?
Yes, sir.
I take it then that you also believe in the equal application of the criminal laws of our country?
Yes, sir.
Would you agree that public officials owe a greater responsibility toward compliance with morality, honesty, and lawfulness than the average citizen by reason of the public trust?
Yes, sir.
As Rockefeller testified, the Internal Revenue Service and another congressional committee began auditing his tax returns for the last 10 years. During one of those years, 1970, he paid no federal income tax despite an income of nearly $2.5 million. Rockefeller has attributed that fact to major investment shifts in 1969, which brought about heavy capital gains taxes. Bill Zimmerman, ABC News, Capitol Hill.
Rockefeller conceded today that the potential for conflict of interest exists because of his wealth, but he repeated that his own economic interest would not be a factor in any decision he would make as vice president.
You know, you can make your own life more worth living. I believed that when I was a teacher here, and I believe it now that I'm a wife and mother. Just be everything you can be. And being healthy is a big part of it, so I eat right, exercise, and to make sure I get enough iron and vitamins, I take Geritol every day.
Geritol, more than twice the iron of any ordinary supplement, and some very important vitamins.
Be everything you can be. It's worth it.
Geritol, every day.
When a man uses an aftershave, what does he really want? Fancy bubbles? Full of fancy perfume and fancy pricing? No! A man wants to smell like a man. There's something about Aqua Velva. He wants to be cool and refreshed. There's something about Aqua Velva. A man wants to feel like a man. Feel like a man, 'cause there's something about an Aqua Velva man.
President Ford has taken another step to put distance between his administration and the Watergate problems of the Nixon administration. ABC White House correspondent Tom Jarrell reports.
Slowly, the Ford administration is shifting the old top Nixon staff members out, but there still are plenty taking home large government salaries 47 days after their boss resigned. The latest major move involves the return of Donald Rumsfeld to Washington to become White House Chief of Staff, replacing General Alexander Haig. Rumsfeld is the NATO ambassador who served as counselor to former President Nixon and was a four-term U.S. congressman from Illinois before that. Rumsfeld developed a close working friendship with Congressman Gerald Ford and now will become the administrative doorkeeper to the Oval Office. General Haig will leave this Friday for a vacation before reporting to his new job as Allied Commander in Europe November 1st. The new White House News Secretary Ron Nessen made the announcements in his first briefing for his former colleagues. Nessen found there were a lot more questions than answers, and many of the questions still focus on whatever happened to so-and-so. For example, whatever happened to communications czar Ken Clausen, seen recently in San Clemente? He's still on the government payroll, making $42,000 a year handling transition matters. Why is Ronald Ziegler still drawing a similar salary but not answering reporters' questions? Answer, ask Ron Ziegler. And when is the Reverend Father John McLaughlin, critically called the propaganda priest for Mr. Nixon, leaving the payroll of the White House press office? Nessen's answer, soon. Nessen thus became the third Ford spokesman to say McLaughlin is out, but the priest thus far has endured better than two of the spokesmen. Tom Jarrell, ABC News at the White House.
It started here, spread upward. Headache. You need relief. But before you take plain aspirin, know the truth. On the average, most of aspirin is still in the stomach 20 minutes after taking. 20 minutes. Take Bufferin. It's twice as fast getting out of the stomach and speeding to the headache, and with less chance of stomach upset. Aspirin or any pain reliever in your stomach isn't helping your headache. Next time, get fast relief with Bufferin.
Microwave ovens are not all alike. So before you buy one, look into the quality features of the Amana radar range. Stainless steel interior, automatic door lock, 2 times, 5 and 30 minutes, even a defrost site. And if anything goes wrong with your radar range oven in the first 5 years of normal household use, take it to your Amana servicer, and he'll replace any part, free, even light bulbs. Now that's quality. But remember, if it doesn't say Amana, it's not a radar range.
This is Remy Julien, Europe's greatest living stunt driver. In more than 100 films, Remy Julien has done more stunts in Fiats than in any other car. And the Fiat he prefers above all is this one, the Fiat 124. A family car.
Meet Susan Blakely.
Clothes are very important to me, and I take special care of mine. I do my fine washables in Woolite, because I know Woolite's safe. For my bright colored dresses, Or today's terrific sweaters. Woolite in cold water. Safely soak fine washables clean in 3 minutes without shrinking, stretching, or fading. And when clothes look and feel this nice, you feel beautiful in them.
Woolite safely soaks fine washables clean without shrinking, stretching, or fading.
Reaction from the Arab world has been generally negative to yesterday's tough statements on high oil prices from President Ford and Secretary of State Kissinger. Some Arab newspapers interpreted Mr. Ford's warning that high oil prices could undermine the world order as a threat to go to war over the issue. One Arab ruler, the Emir of Abu Dhabi, said oil producers would be willing to cut prices if Western countries would reduce prices of food and manufactured goods. Saudi Arabia's oil minister, Sheikh Yamani, was in Chicago today. We have a report on his reaction from ABC's Ron Miller.
Sheikh Yamani was generally conciliatory in his prepared speech, pointing toward mutually beneficial economic projects available to the United States and Saudi Arabia. But he cautioned that economic interdependence between the two countries greatly depends on continuing world demand for oil at prevailing prices. At a news conference, Yamani characterized President Ford's statements on oil pricing as friendly.
I think unless we sit down together, all the parties concerned, we might face a disaster. So what the President was saying yesterday is that it is serious. We have to meet and we have to get together and try to reach a solution. The disaster might be a worldwide depression, who knows, unless we sit down and discuss it.
But Yamani warned the United States not to apply too much pressure for reduced oil prices.
I should give you a little advice as a friend that don't you ever overemphasize this, do this and do that, don't do that, for the oil producers or for the developing countries. Otherwise, you will show the U.S. as a country who is now advocating for a new form of economical imperialism. And that's very dangerous. This is against your policy in this country. You are against imperialism.
Yamani says there may be some short-term reductions in oil prices, but in the long run, he forecasts at least nominal oil price increases. Ron Miller, ABC News, Chicago.
The Tennessee Valley Authority called today for a voluntary 20% cutback in power usage by its 2.5 million customers because of dwindling coal supplies. TVA Board Chairman Aubrey Wagner warned that if consumers fail to cut down on their use of electricity, rationing may be necessary. Wagner said TVA has been burning more coal than it has been receiving for the past 7 months, and the supplies are now dangerously low. An early frost, which hit parts of the Midwest with temperatures as low as 18 degrees, has seriously hurt corn, soybean, and vegetable crops. The damage to corn alone is estimated at $700 million, which means still higher food costs later this year. The Agriculture Department said today that the cost of a typical market basket of groceries rose by 1.4% in August. That was the biggest one-month increase in the indicator since last February, with higher prices for beef, pork, and eggs accounting for a major part of the rise. Stocks closed lower on Wall Street in light trading. The Dow Jones Industrials were down nearly 10 points. Standard & Poor's Index was also down 1.4. The American Stock Exchange Index was off by 1 point.
It's acid indigestion, but the pressure, it's gas again.
Digel has told you that acid indigestion and heartburn are often accompanied by gas. Digel calls it acid indigestion. Now, this report from the U.S. government confirms that the only ingredients recognized effective against both acid indigestion and gas are an antacid combined with simethicone. And that's exactly what Digel is. No antacid alone relieves like Digel does. In regular mint flavor, and now new lemon orange.
Hi, I'm Vicki Lawrence, singer, comedian, and charm school dropout. You see this curve in my back? Well, I never could get it flat against the wall. Same problem on a hard, flat bed. But on a Simmons Beauty Rest mattress, the coils are free to push up and fill in under the curve. While at equal pressure, these ordinary coils don't fill in as readily. So a Beauty Rest makes a lot of sense. It's firm, but I don't strain to fit it. It fits me. And sleep, it's like an overnight vacation. Right?
The Senate today gave final congressional approval to an $82.5 billion defense appropriation bill. The measure, which now goes to the White House, was $4.4 billion less than the administration had requested. The House today voted to suspend U.S. aid to Turkey until there is substantial progress in removing Turkish troops from Cyprus. The vote with 307 to 90 to cut off aid now, in spite of warnings by House leaders that the move would endanger Secretary of State Kissinger's efforts to achieve a settlement of the Cyprus crisis. Israeli planes today made several raids on guerrilla bases in Lebanon. Officials said the raids were preemptive attacks to make sure Israel was never caught off guard, as it was during the Yom Kippur War last October. Authorities in Honduras say the death toll from Hurricane Fifi has now reached between 7,000 and 8,000 persons. An international relief effort gathered momentum today, but rescue workers say food and other supplies are not reaching stricken areas fast enough to prevent starvation and epidemics. Attorney General Saxby and FBI Chief Clarence Kelly told a conference of police chiefs here in Washington yesterday that part of the reason for rising crime rates is inadequate action against repeat offenders. Today, President Ford addressed the same group and outlined a program to deal with that problem. White House correspondent Steve Bell reports.
The president told the chiefs of police he has asked the Justice Department to set up a career criminal impact program, the target in cooperation with state and local governments to keep track of hardened criminals and get them out of circulation.
We must make crime hazardous and very costly. We must ensure that swift and prolonged imprisonment will inevitably follow each and every offense. Only then will we deter others from pursuing careers of crime.
It was the kind of tough law and order stance the police chiefs appreciated, and the president concluded his remarks with a solemn tribute to a young policewoman.
It was here in Washington that a sad but heroic chapter of police history was made last week. Officer Gail Cobb became the first policewoman in the United States killed in the line of duty. To honor her memory, I ask this convention to stand in silent tribute to Officer Cobb, whose funeral is taking place at this very moment.
Watching the police officers gather to honor Gail Cobb, one realized how accustomed we are now to seeing women officers on the force. Almost 3 years ago, Washington was the first city to assign large numbers of women to patrol duty. They walk beats, ride patrol cars with male partners, perform the same jobs. Gail Cobb's death hasn't changed anything or caused any second thoughts. Women off duty were here to honor their sister officer. Those on duty followed their normal schedules. Last night, before coming to the funeral, Maxine Yancey worked a regular patrol and told us about her feelings in the aftermath of Miss Cobb's death.
I'm sorry the incident happened, but I don't think that it's going to interfere with my work at all. I don't feel any different. I don't think the sex really had anything to do with it. It just happened to have been, Officer Cobb at the time. I think I'm going to be a little more cautious in the future, but I'm not nervous about it at all. So far, I haven't had any situation that presented a problem on the street that I couldn't handle. They treat me just like a regular police officer,
Even the officers from neighboring states who joined the hundreds of Washington police at the funeral seemed to accept that it could have been any officer, male or female, that the gunman shot. Cameras weren't allowed in the church, but through a loudspeaker, newsmen and the overflow crowd of officers heard the police chaplain make a special note of the first woman officer's death.
Something else happened last Friday that changed the course of history not only for Gail's family and loved ones, but for the law enforcement community as well. As the first policewoman in the nation to give her life in the line of duty, it is now an established fact that the criminal makes no distinction between the sexes. A police officer is a police officer regardless. It is your badge and the blue of your uniform that makes the difference.
Gail Cobb graduated from the police academy last April. She had been on the job only 5 months when she was gunned down last Friday while trying to capture a suspected bank robber. Gail Cobb was 24. Roger Peterson, ABC News, Washington.
I'll have tonight's comment in a moment.
Okay, here. Look at Whoa! Thanks, Billy. My job as a sportscaster keeps me hopping. I travel a lot. Sometimes I get up too early, or I stay up too late. So, sometimes I get constipated. That's where Phillips Milk and Magnesia comes in. I've tried other laxatives. Some are slow, others are harsh. Phillips works in hours. Gently. And Milk and Magnesia is the kind of laxative doctors recommend most often. Get the Phillips.
Hang a curtain? Simple, except on those occasions when arthritis flares up with minor pain and its stiffness. For help, take Anacin. While all 3 leading pain relievers reach an effective level in your bloodstream in minutes, in the final analysis, Anacin hits the highest level. And taken as directed, Anacin maintains an effective level for hours against minor arthritis pain and its stiffness. So don't put up with minor arthritis pain. Take Anacin. Anacin will relieve the pain for more freedom of movement.
I'm always suspicious when people talk about establishments and conspiracies in the sense of quiet groups quietly and effectively deciding what to do about our lives or world events. I'm suspicious whether the establishment being discussed is the Eastern liberal press or the FBI, CIA, or the gnomes of Zurich. But I am prepared to believe that sometimes, sort of by osmosis, decisions are made that have the effect of an establishment consensus. And my guess is that such a decision has been made by what you might call the Western civilization conspiracy. And the decision is that the course of said Western civilization is not going to be determined by the sheiks and colonels and emirs who control the oil of the Middle East. During the oil embargo, a major figure in the American oil industry said privately that it was inconceivable that with all our other problems, the West would live for very long with capricious political decisions from remote Arab capitals. After initial attempts, both in Europe and here, to accommodate some of the more reasonable Arab aims, it now seems that what that oil executive said has become the consensus. That is what President Ford, Secretary Kissinger, and Secretary Simon were announcing yesterday. And I assume the Arabs got the message, judging from the cries of outrage today. The message is that there is no limit to the pressure the industrial West will put on the oil countries to enforce some sanity in their policies. That doesn't mean some immediate, ill-considered Anglo-French-Israeli invasion of the Suez, but it certainly means use of everything short of military force, including food. And it doesn't rule out eventual force, somebody's force. I think that is what the coordinated statements of President and cabinet members meant. It was the clearest kind of establishment statement. You can only hope the people they were talking to were listening. That's tonight's news and a comment. I'm Harry Reasoner. Good night.
This has been the ABC Evening News with Howard K. Smith and Harry Reasoner, Monday through Friday. This has been a presentation of ABC News. Happy Days, tonight at 8, 7 Central. Right after Richard Boone stars as a man obsessed with conquering the raging falls in The Great Niagara, the Tuesday movie of the week. Tonight, here on ABC.
Leaf, you're supposed to put your napkin on your lap. Oh, it's pretty. It's Coronet, you know. What's the matter with Betsy? She's got a terrible cold. She needs a tissue. She needs a soft tissue like Coronet. Babies are very delicate. I know. I even use Coronet bathroom tissue. You must use a zillion Coronet towels.
Paper your home with Coronet from Georgia Pacific.
Every car should have a regular safety check. But when was the last time your car insurance had a safety check? The man from Nationwide can check it for dangerous gaps and loopholes. Make sure you have the right amounts of liability, comprehensive, and collision. Making your car insurance safe to drive is part of Nationwide's